During 1917, the New Zealanders took part in a series of battles around the ancient Belgian city of Ypres. The aim of the British commanders was to break out of a salient, a bulge in the line around the ruined city. At first, the attacks using new tactics were successful. But as heavy autumn rain turned the churned-up battleground into mud, it became harder and harder to go forward. On October 4, the New Zealanders took part in a successful but bloody advance. On October 12, as the rain kept falling, they were ordered to attack again.
We go on again tomorrow, and yesterday and today there have been heavy downpours of rain. With a great success tomorrow and good weather for a few more weeks, we may still win the war before Christmas.
I suspect they are making a great bloody experiment. A huge gamble. I feel, and most of the correspondents feel, terribly anxious. I thought the principle was to hit whenever the weather is suitable. If so, it is thrown over at the first temptation.
Unfortunately, it is raining, and the sun hasn't got the power to dry the ground so late in the year. We've got a very muddy time in front of us, and that means a lot. The mud is a worse enemy than the Germans.
I called on General Plumer and had tea. It was raining and looked like a wet night. He stated the 2nd Anzac Corps had specifically asked that there should be no postponement. I ordered them to carry on.
It was a bitterly cold night, with a steady fall of rain, and no one will ever forget that dark passage among the shell holes and the swamps.
The ground was so soft and waterlogged that the guns simply sank up to the axles after the first few shots had been fired.
220 rounds of ammunition, 48 hours rations, a full water bottle, a shovel or a pick, and a rifle and a bayonet. I think they calculated around 80 pounds. So this business of charge boys, charge the blokes and give them cold steel and all that was a load of bunkum. You just blundered along.
One saw sickening sights in that brief interval. Without knowing, without caring, Corporal Duval's section was annihilated by one shell. I saw limbless men and dead men on all sides, and yet the feeling was not one of horror or fear, but simply that it was all so natural and ordinary an occurrence.
For my part, in Passchendaele, I seemed to be alone mostly. Alone. I felt alone, if you understand, when I think of it now, although I know there must have been men on either side of me.
All about us are our own dead and dying, lying in the mud in the drizzling rain. God knows when they will be removed, as a vast sea of mud lies between us and the habitable rear from whence the stretcher bearers must come. Most of our stretcher bearers have gone west, and we are physically incapable of removing them ourselves.
I won't forget my experience today if I live for 1,000 years. Immense quantities of fighting material littered the ground. Graves were thick and bodies with only a few shovelfuls of earth protruded in every direction. It is hard to imagine that 4 years ago, peaceful people tilled this same soil. Now, as I saw it today, well, it's simply an awful nightmare. A hideous reeking swamp seething with living and dead beings. A place that stamps itself on one's mind and memory like a red-hot iron.
The results of our stunt you now know, so no more need be said about it. Some terrible blunder has been made. Someone is responsible, but the papers will all report another glorious success. And no one, except those who actually took part in it, will know any different. You cannot fight machine guns plus wire with human bodies. Without the wire to check them, the men would have tackled the machine guns in spite of their losses. As it was, they tried to tackle both. This was humanly impossible. We assumed that the wire had been cut. We made a mistake. All around, we could see evidence of the spendthrift folly of high command with men and their lives. For miles, the country was fouled with rotting dead. Fragments of horses, mules, men, disabled tanks, equipment sinking in the mud, helmets riddled with shrapnel. There were books, flesh, arms and legs protruding from the mud. It was as if land and men and war material had been churned in some giant mixer and spread over the land pitted with craters to hold the enriched mixture.